Hello friends, I'm Kayla and today we're going to try out some paid book recommendation services. If you've been around for years, you may recall I've tried out this service before, Tailored Book Recommendations or mytbr.co. I love the service. It's so unique. It's so interesting. And I haven't used it in a couple years, I think, since I did the romance version of it. And I've been thinking how to do another episode. I really want to just compare different services. And there is some people who do it on like Etsy or Fiverr or their Coffee, where you connect with an individual person who's just, you know, kind of a book community member. And I think I'm going to do an episode like that later in the year. But right now, I really wanted to focus on professionals, people who are known for providing this service. This is something like a core part of what they do. So I came across this one. I think it's through a bookstore. I know they have a book club, but I think they are a bookstore. And they're called UNDERBRUSH. And they do it similarly to mytbr.co. It's around the same amount of money, between $10 and $15 for the recommendation part. And then if you want to receive the books, it's a different amount of money, but you can receive the books. And then the only other one that I came across that you also receive a book is from LGBTQ Reads. This is a blog and a website run by Dahlia Adler, who is someone in the community I've followed for so long. And I've read multiple anthologies edited by her. And if you join the Patreon, the certain tier, it's around $30 and you get a book every single month for that $30 recommended specifically for you. It's a book concierge service. So I signed up for 1 month, and it's hard to compare the prices because obviously I just said it was $10 and $15 and this one's more, but the price of the book is factored in. There isn't a version to just get like the digital version like you can with the other ones, just the recommendations. Like there is a book guaranteed. But I did put in my request, my message for the month. And I think what I'm understanding is I'm just supposed to put out like a genre out there and I will get a queer recommendation. So I put it out there. When she asked what I was looking for, I said, I'm happy to just pay you like for your services. If you can find me a book recommendation, if you can maybe give me like 3 to 5 ideas, I'm happy to go buy the books myself. I already paid the fee. I don't need the book. Like I'll go find it myself. It's fine. Just like, can we have a back and forth maybe? So I'm waiting to see how that works out. But I know that I'm asking for something like above and beyond what she actually is offering. So if I put out the genre, I was like, I want something that's a mix of fantasy and romance. So that is what I'm telling all 3 of these services. My plan is to read 2 of however many recommendations come at me, 2 from each, and see how the books go and see how I like the service. Basically what I'm looking for, and I'm giving everyone the same amount of information, is fantasy and romance. I just find it really hard to get recommendations within romantasy because I'm looking for something so specific. And feel free to give me some in the comments because this could also be like, you know, a spin-off. I could take things from here. I want it to be fun. I want a rom-com, but in a fantasy setting, but I want steam. I want it to be spicy, not erotic, but I also want yearning. I want a slow build. I want to have to wait, but then I want a good payoff. And with that, I find a lot of recommendations are cozy, they're light. And that's not what I want either. I don't want it to be just like so sweet and adorable, but I don't want it to be like deeply, intensely, emotionally romantic. And then I don't also want it to be like so intense and like war and espionage, but I do want a plot. I don't just want the romance. I want there to be something going on. What I'm basically looking for is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, but a little bit steamy. I want Veronica and Stoker, but in a fantasy setting. I want the Raven cycle, but adults. I like found family, but I just want the book to be from one perspective, like maybe 2, but I don't want an ensemble. I want there to be some stakes, but I don't want to cry. I like enemies to lovers. I like rivals to lovers. I like fake dating. I like marriage of convenience. I love reading from an academic perspective, intelligent people researching things where their minds are really in alignment, but I also really don't want any weird dynamics between people. I don't want to read a student professor thing. I love an obsessed love interest, but also who like respects and understands the main character. And I understand that I'm asking for too much, but I am so certain that my favorite book is out there and I just haven't found it. So it's a big ask, but I'm gonna see what these 3 have to offer, and then I'm gonna read some books. I will let you know when they all get back to me and how the recommendations go. Oh my gosh. Instant update from Dahlia Adler or LGBTQ Reads. I don't know if it's just her or there's other people involved. For this one, the price, you also have to think about the fact that you're signing up for a Patreon. This service is not the only thing that you're signing up for. Joining someone's Patreon or membership or whatever is, in my mind, first and foremost, just a way to support that creator, to support the website, and anything happening within the platform is a perk. But they've sent me some recommendations before I even had the chance to send over the paragraph, because I said, like, if you're not into this idea at all, I totally, like, the service is, this is what it is. I give you the genre, you send me a book. First of all, they said, no, we still want to send you a book. Like, everything is totally fine with that. And that she'd love to still provide some curated titles just for fun, which is so kind. I'm not going to take her up on it, but before I even send over any preferences, I have been recommended The Gentleman and His Vowsmith. No idea what that is. The new Niveau spin on The Great Gatsby, Don't Sleep with the Dead, which I didn't think would be for me. I still don't, because this isn't based on anything. Or Direct Descendant by Tanya Huff, which I don't know what, or the new Katie Robert, if you want something more erotic forward, sweet obsession. I do like obsession, but I feel like people tell me not to read Katie Robert. By the time that you're seeing this, I might have already read her dragon book in my dragon video. So I don't know how that went. So I'm gonna look those up, but I'm also going to send over my paragraph of what I love. Okay, so right off the bat, these 3 books are brand new releases, April titles, which I really love. The first one says it's set in Regency, England. It's a queer historical fantasy of magic, murder, high heat, and humor. I didn't even send over my preferences, and I got something that might fit. The next one is Direct Descendant. It says it's a cozy horror. Queer romance, a perfect balance of dark and delightful. It's standalone. It's creepy, snarky, and fun. And then Sweet Obsession by Katie Robert is the 8th book in this series. And it's about Icarus. Icarus may have not flown particularly close to the sun, but he has fallen right into the rough hands of Olympus's own Poseidon. Being held captive by the gentle giant wouldn't be so bad if Olympus wasn't on the eve of destruction, or if Poseidon stopped looking at him with those irresistibly stormy eyes. I don't know if that's for me, but we'll see. Okay, now I've sent over my paragraph, and she got back to me immediately. It makes sense that getting in tune with someone's reading taste takes a little bit of time, so some of her patrons have been participating in this for years. She said, have you read The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke? Assuming you've already read This Is How You Lose the Time War. I love This Is How You Lose the Time War. I do want something a little more like overtly romantic and, like I said, steamy. She also asked if I have a preference between young adult and adult, so adult for sure. And then she also mentioned Lady Eve's Last Con. These definitely sound like espionage, spy type stories, which is not what I'm into, so I'm going to re-let her know that. Long Live Evil by Sarah Rose Brennan I have also heard of, but I didn't think it sounded like it would be for me. But I'll take a quick look and then let you know if anything else comes back. Okay, yeah, those ones I think we're getting a little bit off the right trail. And she gave me, I see 3 last messages. Regardless of what these are, I'm going to take some of these recommendations because I don't want to take up any more of her time. A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft, Academics, and Enemies to Lovers. Okay. I do really like the cover of that one. I considered reading it last year. Literally everyone has told me I'm going to hate it, and I don't believe anyone. A Strange and Stubborn Endurance. That title already sounds like something I would like, by Foz Meadows. And then Sorcery and Small Magics by Mega Ducey, which I have heard of. Okay, I have so many things to choose from, and I very much appreciate her taking the time to do this. I don't know what to pick, but I have time to think about it while I wait for the other things to come in. So Underbrush got back to me in less than 6 hours. I accidentally opened the email because I didn't realize what it was, and there was no preamble. The first book was just sitting there, so I already know what it is. And while I did get to link my Goodreads, unfortunately, it's my bad that I didn't put this book ever on my DNF shelf. So it's a good thing I got 3 things to choose from, and I'm gonna read whatever the other 2 are. So the email says your recommendations are ready, and the first book is already right here. It's Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which I know so many people have told me that I will love. I just didn't like the style of it, so I didn't finish it, and then I watched some spoiler videos. It says, the most anticipated book of 2024, the ultimate monster slayer story of the monsters of a misunderstood creature. Okay, let's just scroll to the next one. A Letter to the Luminous Deep. I have borrowed this. This is a great pick. I've borrowed it from the library. I've given it back. I can't remember if I ever even read the first chapter. It's just something that I thought I would like, so it's exciting that they also think that. And like I said, I like Emily Wilde. And this says, with the magical academia and a heartwarming pen pal romance, perfect for fans of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. So I think that what they're putting here is just like a blurb of the book. It's not like the reasoning why they would pick it for me. This one I'm realizing like maybe I don't even know what it fully is, because it seems like a wholesome, cozy, I didn't even know this was a romance, to be honest. I think it's like letters between people, and like maybe the two people never actually interact, but I'm probably wrong. Oh, the last one is Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. Okay. Stephen's god died on the longest day of the year. 3 years later, Stephen is a broken paladin living only for the chance to be useful before he dies. But all that changes when he encounters a fugitive named Grace. I have given T. Kingfisher 2 stars, 3 stars a bunch of times, a 4, a 4.5. I think that this makes sense. Not that I know that much about it, but it seems to fit in romantasy, and I think it's steamy. So putting these side by side as recommendations, I think I'm realizing when I fill out the information sheet, like I can't control how someone else is interpreting those things. And so in my mind, I was like, I want all of the elements I listed in one book. But of course, if some of the elements that I mentioned fit with one book, and some of the elements I mentioned fit with another, like why wouldn't they give me recommendations that suit lots of things rather than giving me 3 books that are all the same and fit all of the guidelines that I gave? It says make sure you log into the dashboard. The thing said that I would get access to their app. I don't know if it's an app. I might just be stupid, but I'm pretty sure it's just like their website where I filled out the little questionnaire. The questionnaire, just because I know that mytbr.co lets you type more things in, the experience itself felt like a little less thorough with Underbrush because there were more things that I was checking off. And I don't know if it's the most useful. That one of the questions is like, do you prefer physical books or ebooks? And then there was one that was like, how often do you read? And I had to pick, like, I read really often. I only read a couple books a month. I'm sure that is useful for them. Like they have reasons for these questions, but filling it out, I didn't feel like some of the things that I was saying was going to be the most useful. And then when they asked about genres, I could only tick off certain boxes. I couldn't like combine things or specify like, I don't like this genre, but if it does this, then I do like it. And then for what was the last book you read and loved, I only got to enter 1 book. And that just seems crazy. But the recommendations came in really fast. So if you're looking for something with a quick turnaround, not that I can guarantee that this is how their service always works, but it went really quickly for me. Okay, I was just looking at the website, and in my account, there's an area, if I click on it, it takes me to a little note from them. So I don't know why this wasn't in the original email, but if I then go to the website and see my recommendations, there's now a bookseller note. Hi Kayla, we're so excited you decided to do a trial of our book recommendation service. Your reading preferences sound a lot like ours, which means we had a tough time narrowing down just 3 books for you. If you'd like any of these, let us know and we can send you an invoice minus your trial cost and we'll get the books to you. Can't wait to see what you choose. Okay, so I don't think that's actually personalized. What's unique about this book service and interesting is the money that I paid for the trial version. If I decide to be sent one of the books, that amount goes into like as if I had signed up for a subscription. And then every month I get the recommendations just like this and I get to pick one. I think I have to pick one every month once I actually do the subscription, and one gets sent to me every month. Okay, and then if I click view details, because I can select the book, but if I click view details, then it gives me a bookseller note for each book. A book that both of our owners absolutely adored last year. It's a romantasy that isn't spicy, but just a grand old time, cozy, but also very much an adventure story with a hint of mystery. Okay, so there is a personalized note with each one. I just have to hunt for it. If you love Emily Wilde, you will love this one. Also not spicy, but very much a mystery. It's an epistolary novel, which we understand might not be for everyone. I do love an epistolary novel, but we do love a good letter. And if you're looking for a good audiobook, this one has excellent narration. Okay, so this, I guess, is valuable. I didn't say I liked audiobooks, but I can see how if I answered that I do like audiobooks, then that can cater to how they pitch the book to me. And then Paladin's Grace. Okay. This household is unapologetically a T. Kingfisher household. Paladin's Grace is absolutely the holy grail of funny, balanced romantasy. If you liked Sword Heart, which I did, I gave it 4 stars, so they must have seen that on my Goodreads, you will love this one. This one does come with some spice. Okay, so I was gonna wrap up my thoughts by saying I think I already preferred my TBR because they give you a letter and they give you reasons for each one, but this one also did give me that, so great. And I'll see you when the last set of recommendations come in, and then we can finally read and compare fully. My tailored book recommendation pigeon has arrived. It has landed. My email is in my hands. I can't wait to see what they recommended. This took almost 2 weeks, which is the exact amount of time that they say it's going to take, which I like. I find that I exist in a world in which instant gratification is so easily obtained in so many areas that I constantly look for opportunities to not have myself be able to get what I want in a click of a button. So even though I know that this, based on how much I pay and how the system works, someone's only spending, you know, half an hour actually compiling all of this and writing up the little details that I'm about to see of why the book was chosen for me. But the fact that it does take a week or two to get to me, and that's how it's advertised, feels like someone is spending a week or two analyzing my taste and really thinking through what I want. And I know that it's not true, but I like that it doesn't arrive within a couple of hours. I work in marketing because marketing works on me. The same way that I will pay more for a product if you hide the shipping fee within it. Because if I go to my cart and it says it's gonna cost me $10 to ship something, I'm probably not gonna buy it. I digress. Let's open the email. We're all waiting to see. Hi Kayla, here we go again. This time around, okay, wait. It says a YA fantasy. Did I not specify I wanted adult? Did I not? Oh no. Did I specify in the other two, but I didn't say it in this one? Okay, that's fine. Recommending a fun YA fantasy romance about a demon trying to become human but blocked in their efforts by a cursed boy. A fantasy about a changeling tasked with rescuing the princess she replaced. And a surreal novel about a trans girl and the family she built for herself after she leaves home. The first one is The Diablo's Curse. Since you're looking for genre fiction with bantery romance that doesn't take itself too seriously, I think you should try this read about a demon trying to become human. A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine. I've never heard of this. You want to try fantasy with a romance component, but don't mind a love triangle. So I'm recommending this novel about a changeling tasked with rescuing the child she replaced. Third one, Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars. I have heard of this. Because you like fabulous reads, I think you should pick up this surrealist novel about an unnamed trans girl who runs away from home and finds a place she belongs in the streets of Miracles among other trans femmes. And when one of their own is murdered, our heroine and her new family form a vigilante group to fight back. That cover is something that I would not pick up for myself. I've never seen this cover. I love the colors. So I'm reading this for another video, and now I'm trying to figure out if you have already seen me talk about it or if you're seeing this first. Now, the thing about me submitting all of this stuff, the person recommending books does not have to fulfill every single thing that I'm looking for, right? It's not like I wrote a list specifically that's like, I want one novel that has this, 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 and this, and doesn't have any of this. So it does make sense to me that things may be outside of the specifications that I made because they're not being taken as like I'm looking for everything in one book. I think they're all gonna have elements of the things that I've mentioned. So I filmed that intro in March. It's currently July. Don't look at my calendar. I bought one that starts in August. And I actually recently DNF'd Fierce Femmes. I thought it was fine, but just not specifically for me and my tastes. And so I was fully prepared to just read the YA. And then today, guess what came into my inbox? Another pigeon from mytbr.co because I didn't cancel my like quarterly recommendation service. So I was prepared to ignore it, just read the YA, talk about it here with you. But there was a book mentioned, and I think I have to read it because I never in my life was considering reading Behooved, but now I am. My recommender CJ this time around said, it aligns well with what you're looking for. It's fun, doesn't take itself too seriously, and has a share of its steamy moments. Quite a bit of yearning too. It stars newlywed nobles who on the night of their arranged marriage narrowly escape an assassination attempt that leaves the groom cursed to shift into a horse by day. Yeah, I'm not a shifter girl, but it never occurred to me to put that on my specifications list, so maybe things have changed. Maybe Behooved will be for me. So I've been collecting all of the books that were recommended. They all came from the library, except the YA one was not available, so I was gonna go buy it, but now I'm gonna buy Behooved instead. A couple other quick updates. I have since filming this intro read A Dark and Drowning Tide and The Dragon's Bride. I gave them both 3 stars. And when I originally kicked off this journey, it was because I was desperately in search of a fantasy romance that I loved because it had been so long since I found one. And since doing all of this, I have found one. I gave An Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love 5 stars. I adore this book, and that's actually a good thing because now the stakes are so much lower for this video. It doesn't matter how everything goes because I'm not desperately in need for a huge win, but obviously I hope that I find one. So I've got the 2 books from Underbrush, the 2 books from my TBR.co that I have committed to, and I need to decide on the official 2 books that I'm reading for the LGBTQ reads. So to figure that out, I'm going to read the first like chapter or 2 of all 4 of these, and then I'll commit to the 2 that are the most intriguing to me. Okay, so the 2 first that were mentioned before I put in my preferences. The Gentleman and His Vowsmith. We have our main character named Nick, and his father requested him for a meeting at the beginning. He's the Duke, and he had accepted an offer for his son's marriage. Everyone in the story is aware of his preference for men, so there's going to be like some kind of deal going on, but he is being promised to a woman. All we really know about Nick so far is that he has some type of magic. He could be a Vowsmith if he wanted to, but he has like a lot of untapped potential, I guess. In Direct Descendant, the first chapter was quite long. We met Cassie. She lives in this town where they've made a deal with these dark forces, and her family has like a job responsible for these dark forces. And it opens up with her seeing this stranger in town who like shouldn't be allowed to be there based on the deal with the dark forces, who sacrifices himself at like this known location of dark power. That's what we got in the first chapter here. Then the 2 that were specifically like fitting into my specifications. A Strange and Stubborn Endurance started so similarly to this one. It was about a man who got invited to a meeting with his father, and his father was like, I have a marriage proposal for you. I've already decided on it. You're going to marry this woman. But our main character is gay. I have no inkling into the type of fantasy or like magic, if there is any situation that this includes. This is told in first person, and it's a very dramatic kind of inner monologue that I wasn't really vibing with. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Direct Descendant, I don't actually know my rating for. Like, I feel like I need to read a couple more chapters. This is the one I'm going to commit to, Sorcery and Small Magics. We're following a sorcerer named Leo, and at the beginning it opened with him drunk and kind of in trouble getting back to the school that he goes to. He's been in school for sorcery for 4 years, and to get his family inheritance, he has to become a fully trained sorcerer. The synopsis says that him and a man we met in the first chapter, Sebastian Grimm, get like linked together by their magic, and they're trying to unlink themselves throughout the story. It's not the like intellectual main character that I was hoping for, but Sebastian is. Leo just seems like more of a chaotic mess, but who knows where the direction is going to go. I was intrigued most by the writing of this one. I want to pick one of these 2, but really I am drawn into Direct Descendant. The synopsis talks about our main character getting involved with a PI that comes to town. I don't think this one is going to have any steam because it says that it's cozy, but this one will, so I think this would be a good combo, especially considering all 3 of these, the relationships are already established, and that's just not always my favorite thing. Like, when I want yearning and I want to see the beginning of their relationship, and all of these were about the men getting in relationships with men that they already know. This one's going to be a nice fresh romance, I think. Now, without starting the other 4, I don't have any inkling into the first chapters of the writing style or what I'm going to like. I am going to rank them based on what I think is going to be my least favorite to favorite, and I also put it to my channel members because they got the intro early where I talked about all of the books. So obviously my 2 at the bottom are the ones that I'm not even reading. I'm going to put Behooved lower down because I just can't imagine I like it, but I'm interested to try. I'm going to put A Letter to the Luminous Deep next. I don't know why. Then let's say Direct Descendant, Paladin's Grace, and then this one, and then I'm going to put A Feather So Black at the top. I don't know. I just think the cover and the premise before I've started it sounds like it's going to be my favorite. So this is my ranking, my predictions of worst to best, and then my members' predictions from worst to best. I'm now officially getting into Direct Descendant. So the first couple chapters, we got both of the characters' POVs. We have Cassie and Melanie. Cassie and the people in this town, they know that there's like this dark force. They interact with the dark force. It's like a regular part of their lives. And at all times, there are 4 different people who are working with the dark forces, being its eyes, ears, mouth, and whatever else. And Cassie is the current conduit. And so people come to her when they want to speak to the dark force and hear what it has to say and help like make their decisions in life and stuff. She sees that man die, sacrifice himself. And then Melanie is living in like a town nearby, and she gets called upon by the grandmother of the guy who sacrificed himself. And she wants Melanie to go to that small town and see what he was up to for the last couple days leading up to his death. It's supposed to be just everybody in the town knows about the dark forces. Nobody else is supposed to be able to infiltrate the town. And it's like this really well-kept secret. So that's the first couple chapters. And yeah, I'm gonna let you know how I feel later on in the day. I finished this one. I don't have the most to say about it. And if I list the things that I wanted, and I pinpoint the things that it didn't do, that's not really fair because this one was recommended before I sent over that paragraph. So there was zero steam in here, and there wasn't yearning. It was pretty insta-lusty between these two women. The first time they interact, pretty much they're like, well, we're gonna be together forever. I see how somebody would describe this as being a cozy horror or being funny. Like, I didn't find it funny, but I think the writing style is a little sly. Like it is, I can objectively see that it's humorous. I did not laugh, but it indeed wasn't too wholesome or too dark or too emotional. The dynamic was decent. I think the relationship did take over a lot of the plot, and so it wasn't super plot centric. But also when I'm talking about like it has to have plot, that isn't taking into account that I also need to care about the plot, because I'll have people recommend me books, like people will say like, oh, Fourth Wing has everything you've listed, but that plot does not interest me. You know what I mean? So there's even more qualifications than what I've listed. The town was quirky for sure, and our main character was kind of like felt like the Rory Gilmore of the situation. You know that one scene where she is being pressured to be like the ice cream princess or queen or whatever, and the whole town is like wanting her and expecting her to be in this role. And it's about the expectations of the town and how she sees herself. And I really liked that element of this. The town was needy but loving, and it was full of a bunch of really quirky characters. It was lighthearted overall, even though we're dealing with things like blood, sacrifice, and ancient gods. It was really low stakes for the urban fantasy horror that it was. It talked about some topics that were interesting, wealth distribution and like kind of nepo babies and indigenous land ownership. If you're looking for something with really great world building and a magic system, this is not the one for you. You're just dropped into things, and the book talks to you as if you live in the town and you know everything. It doesn't really hold your hand and explain things, and even throughout the book, I wouldn't say it does a really thorough job of explaining how the town even functions. It is more about Cassidy and Melanie and their relationship, and also their individual like character arcs, finding out what they want out of life and finding someone who will support their dreams and trust them and believe them. And it was nice. I'm giving it, is it a 3 or is it a 3.5? I am currently reading Sorcery and Small Magics by Mega Ducey. Such a funny name. Like, I thought it was a pen name. I don't know. I don't want to be mean and make fun of someone's name, but like Mega Deuce, like that's crazy. I was reading this all morning. Ow. And then I went on a bike ride, and I went to update you on my bike ride, and I was like so sweaty and out of breath after biking like 30 kilometers. I don't know what I was trying to do. So I'm almost done it, and I haven't told you pretty much anything. You know, we have Leo and Sebastian, or Grimm. One of them does a spell where the other is like stuck to them, attached to them, and now they're trying to break it, and they're just working together, getting to know each other better when they're very different and haven't given each other really the time of day before. So there is a plot, but it is rooted in their relationship, which I think is fine. I think I would have liked a little more going on, but I like the little friendship dynamics that are introduced. Besides them legally drinking occasionally, this could definitely be YA, but I have 20% of the way to go. I was listening a little bit on my bike ride, and now I'm going to get back to it physically, so I don't actually even know like where exactly I'm at. I feel like something like that. We got a moment about 2/3 of the way through that let us a little bit more in on the curse and what it really is, and I really like that element. The way that they're stuck together and being influenced by each other is one of my favorite things. Like, I love a compulsion storyline because it just creates this tension that once the two people do start to become romantically interested in each other, there's this question in everybody's mind of, are you doing things and saying things and feeling things because you actually feel that way towards me, or is it because I've compelled you? I really like that dynamic. I also like the dynamic of Reckless Doll. Instead of like Grumpy Sunshine or whatever else, Reckless Doll is so good, and we usually have it as the main character who's dull, you know, like that classic, I'm just a teenage girl who gets good grades and doesn't really have a lot of fun, and then I meet a bad boy and he introduces me to this like wilder lifestyle. That's such like a classic YA trope, and I like when it's switched when our main character is the one who's a little bit reckless and they're trying to get the person they're interested in to loosen up a bit, because Grimm, well, his name's Sebastian, but Grimm is very by the book, very studious. He's gonna do everything that he's supposed to do, while Leo is a little more, I guess, like fun-loving. I don't know how to exactly describe the tone, because there is like an emotional connection we're getting to. It's definitely not fun, but it is more so lighthearted. It's also a little bit too self-aware though. Like when the book specifically calls out the tropes within it, I don't love that. There was a moment where he was like, well, because of all this forced proximity, I thought you'd like me more or something. I do like seeing their rivalry turn into friendship, turn into potential romance. Like, it is a slow burn. It has taken a while for them to both more or less admit their feelings or acknowledge their own feelings, but we just got this one scene. Basically, our main character, if he gets too far away from Grimm, he starts to feel like physically ill, like they are connected. It's like one of those funny kind of episodes of a teen show where the two people who hate each other are handcuffed together and they get to know each other better. It's like that, but with magic. And he feels physically ill if they're too far apart. And so there are moments where they have to stay in the same room. And we just had one scene where this whole time they're still not getting along. They still don't like each other. They have an argument and Grimm leaves the room and Leo doesn't immediately start feeling poorly in his body. And like he has to get up and go right away to be close to Grimm, and he realizes pretty quickly that like Grimm must have not actually left. He's like probably just sitting around the corner, and respectfully, even though they don't like each other and they're not getting along, he doesn't want to make him feel physically bad. And that was just really lovely. Like I said, I have 20% to go. I'm gonna finish it. I feel like it's gonna be a 4. My 4-star feeling was correct. However, I want to make sure that it doesn't seem like the ratings of all of these books indicate how close they are to my specifications. So at the end, I'm going to do a ranking of the services and of the books with how closely they aligned with what I was looking for. Because this was a 4-star read, but it didn't have any steam. It didn't really have yearning. It wasn't that fun. Like, it wasn't funny. It wasn't a rom-com. It wasn't anything like the vibes of Emily Wilde. But you could recommend them in tandem because they're both like fun fantasy, you know what I mean? They're lighter fantasy, but it wasn't funny in the same way. It was like cozier in the same way. Rather than it being yearning, it was more just a slow appreciation of one another and realizing their own feelings. It did have the rivals element, so I can take that off. And overall, I just think it was well written. I had a good time. The fact that there was no steam in either of these books is disappointing. So I think my next pick is going to be one that I am certain has some of that. But I'm 2 for 2 of having decent book recommendations from LGBTQ Reads. And that website is such a database. Like, if you don't want to participate in this actual recommendation service, like, the website is full of so many examples. Like, you could look for similar books to things that you've loved and you can find like anything. So Paladin's Grace was recommended because I liked Sword Heart, because it is fun and steamy, and I'm happy to report I'm having a good time with it. I'm a little over halfway through, and unfortunately the audiobook is not good. I think the narrator is perfectly fine. In another book, I'm sure he would be great to listen to. He has a nice voice, but he's not embodying the character and the vibes of the story. I was just listening while I was getting ready. There are these moments that you can tell are very tongue-in-cheek, like funny little quips, and he's just reading the book so monotone that it's not coming off correctly. It's supposed to be a kind of Princess Bride vibe, and he's just like reading the words, you know? We have a paladin. That's like honestly a word that I wasn't even familiar with, but he is a protector. He works for like a god, and his god has died, and all of the paladins who were working for him, they were set out to be essentially killing machines and protecting and having just like good, righteous morals for who they were serving. And so the god dies, and he, our main character, Stephen, is left with no real purpose. And he sometimes has these bouts of rage and anger, that there now is no powers to help tamp down or control, or for him to like take that energy and put it into something. He's just kind of existing. And he meets this woman, Grace, who's a perfumer. And so it kind of has that academic vibe that I'm looking for, because she's doing a lot of research. She's going through the forest, and she's really obsessed with smells. And she was trained to be hyper aware of every type of smell, not just the good ones, but the bad ones, for how to combat things. And she has these various opportunities to build her business. And however, it doesn't matter, they get into contact with each other, and he feels this pull towards her and also this protective nature. So when she goes to, you know, the royal castle to make custom perfume for royalty, he is tagging along. And then she wants to go in the forest after and collect some things, and she has some bad things happening with her business, and at every turn he is there to help her, to support her. And they're both convinced that the other person couldn't possibly like them, even though they keep getting into these moments where they're like touching a little bit and they feel something towards one another, and then they're like, no, I can't do that because of this, or they couldn't possibly like me because of this. I remember some scenes in the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love where the man was like talking himself out of the relationship, but like there would be these I don't remember, were they in italics or were they like footnotes, where it would be like his mind convincing him of something, but his words would say something different. And there was a couple moments like that where Stephen was like, it's not like she could ever reciprocate my feelings. It's not like I even like her that much. It's not like I can even remember the color of her eyes, blue. And it's very cute and very fun. But the audiobook narrator is not delivering that. So don't listen to the audiobook. He's very safety focused. He's protective. But also that perfect vibe that I'm looking for, where he also trusts in this, like he is our main character, but I want to call her our main character. It's kind of like we're in third person, but we're getting chapters dedicated to each person, which is why I think the audiobook should have had two narrators. He's more capable in a lot of ways. He's stronger, he's faster, he's more protective, he's more aware of the dangers. There's a little mystery going on because there's somebody going around decapitating people, and she is a little bit reckless because she doesn't fully understand the danger. Meanwhile, he has been in the face of danger his entire life, so like he gets it. Though she also has her own strengths, like she knows how to navigate the forest really well, and we've seen a couple moments where he trusts her implicitly, which is the vibe that I'm always looking for, that Emily Wilde give, that the Ornithologist Field Guide and Veronica Speedwell give, where he turns to her a couple times and we can tell that she is intelligent and he recognizes she is intelligent, and he's like, everybody listen up, she's intelligent, pay attention to her. And I love that. And he's even thinking of her in moments where he could be selfish, like he is very attracted to her, talking about things he wants to do to her, and he's like, no, but I can't. I have to tamp down this feeling, because like even if I wanted to take her right now in the middle of the forest, she'd probably get a bug bite because there are mosquitoes everywhere and it just rained. That's a very fun dynamic. I also like how both of them have somebody on the side to talk to about their feelings. Mostly the book is internal thoughts of theirs and how they feel about each other and how their relationship could progress. Though there also is stuff about their own internal grapplings with, you know, their career and their focus in life, but they each have somebody on the side, whether it be a friend or a business partner, a brother in arms, that they have little confessions with, or they can talk things through with. And a lot of times in romantasy, it's so insular and we're just getting like one main character and all of her thoughts, and she doesn't have friends, she doesn't have work. So I like that we have the side people for them to trust. Paladin's Grace is officially tied with The Hollow Places as my favorite Tea Kingfisher. I gave both of them 4.5 stars. I think this was very good. My one gripe is there wasn't enough fantasy. Like once the plot took off, we went on this little like trial, the little mystery section. I could have used 100 more pages where we had another conflict, just like one more thing, so that didn't feel like the arc of the book, like we were on kind of an adventure and a couple different things were happening. But my friends, this ticks off all of my boxes, except for like the bonus ones that don't really matter. Every single one of them. Slow burn. They were like, okay, insta lust, yes, but it took a while for things to actually happen. They were yearning for a while. And I think that you can want, I don't know why I want to go off on a little tangent. Is a tangent a complaint or just like a side? I want to have a side conversation. You can want sex in a book for whatever reason you want. If you just want to read something smutty because it makes you feel good, I'm happy for you. I want sex in a book because I want yearning in a book. One of the most important things for me in enjoying romance is that it takes a while. Like you feel something between them, like they have to wait for whatever reason. And then I want a climax. And for a lot of people, they would be satisfied with an emotional climax of the book where they, you know, express their feelings and it's so warm and beautiful. And I don't care about that. Or the climax could be, we are deciding to be together forever. Like we're going to be together. Our lives are beginning. And I don't care about that either. I don't care if these characters break up after the book ends. I never have, I never will. So for me, why that is an important part of my list in loving a fantasy romance is because I want the slowness and then it needs to end somewhere. And because I don't care about the emotional or longevity part, I want a sex scene. And obviously I know like sex is not end all be all in relationships. Like nobody needs to have sex to be in a committed relationship or to feel like your story, whatever. Okay, but when it does it like this, I'm very happy because I also strongly believe that a sex scene should improve the story. It should be a part of the story. It's not just a thing that's happening on the side. There's something accomplished kind of by it. Like you get a better idea of the characters. You see their dynamic even more. You know, in this case, it was a moment for Grace to say what she wanted. And that's not something that she felt like she could do before. And as somebody who always says what I want all the time, I want my characters to have that journey, especially when there's a love interest who pushes them towards that. They're like, you need to say what you want. I'm here. You obviously haven't gotten what you wanted in the past. I want to be here with you and I want to give you what you want. So say it. There was one steamy scene, like maybe around here. And then there was a little, it was still a sex scene, but it was shorter, right near the end. So just so your expectations are in the right place. And there was laughing. Okay. This is so important to me. And I've said it a million times and I'll continue saying it forever. A sex scene should be the same tone as the book has been up until that point, and the characters should behave the same as they did in the rest of the book. So there was laughing, there was fun, there was like communication. It wasn't just like they got into bed and they were both completely like sultry, sensual individuals who were like dirty talking. Like that's not who those characters were. This is a fun, silly fantasy book and the sex was fun and silly, while also furthering their connection and giving us more evidence for how the character is growing and evolving. I do wish we got a little more stuff in here. It was a little more plot filled, but without a doubt, a 4.5. Hello, it's a pool day. You can probably hear that. Since we're by the water, I figured the right thing to read would be A Letter to the Luminous Deep. It's by Sylvie Cattrall, and basically it's an epistolary novel, and we're reading the letters between these two characters through their siblings. So the woman has a sister and the man has a brother, and after they have gone missing through whatever we're gonna learn in the story, they're interacting and they're sharing the letters from their respective siblings that they sent to their own sibling. Did that sentence make sense? So we're reading the letters, but we're also reading the correspondence between the people who are sending the letters, siblings also sending letters. It sounds more confusing than it is. It's not confusing at all. I just like don't know how to explain things. I've read the first couple chapters and I think it's interesting. Like I like an epistolary story. In the same way that book reviews, like talking about the actual story, is incredibly subjective and we all recognize that, I'm starting to realize that audiobook reviews are also incredibly subjective. And I've run into this a number of times lately where someone says the audiobook of something is so good, and all they mean by that is that there's more than one narrator. I agree that that is a better situation than having one narrator, but that doesn't make an audiobook good. When I recommend an audiobook over the physical book, when I say the audiobook is better, I mean that it did something to improve the reading experience over physically. Like when I'm reading Emily Wilde, there are all of these footnotes at the bottom, and the narrator perfectly places them in the right spot so you don't have to jump down and get distracted and lose your place. And also, it's when the narrator really embodies a character and gives a vibe and a setting and an atmosphere that you wouldn't necessarily get from the physical experience. When people recommend this as an audiobook, I am now interpreting it as it's not better than the physical book. It is a necessary companion to the physical book. Otherwise, you would completely forget whose perspective we're in, because this is the most consistent writing. Considering we're reading from 4 different perspectives, you could flip this open to any page and not read who you're reading from, just like delete all the names from the page, and you wouldn't be able to tell me whose perspective we're in. The audiobook is a necessary reading tool with this to avoid forgetting who you're reading from, because they all sound the exact same. They're all so dull. And I don't want to hate on the narrators. It's not that I think they're doing a terrible job. I just don't also think they're doing anything particularly interesting with the character voices, but at least it's establishing whose perspective we're in. There are things that I'm liking about this, but it's not what I was looking for. It's more science fiction fantasy. Like, we're getting into a strange arena. For the first 3/4 of it, it has been just like real life. It hasn't felt fantastical. It hasn't felt romantic. It's just people and their correspondence talking about their relationships and how they feel. And there are moments where they're describing like the sea. They're living under the water, but you forget that so often, that they're in these underwater housing units, because they're just like talking about so much unrelated stuff. They're talking about like their passion for the research, but I thought it would be more of a back and forth like about the research. E has discovered a couple sea creatures, and we're talking about them, but it's not like the back and forth, ooh, let's figure this out together. I thought that would be the mystery element. In fact, the mystery element is like how they went missing, but it's not focused on that. Like it's literally just all these letters and them talking about their relationships. It's pretty much the epitome of an ensemble cast. There are so many people talking about like random things about knowing each other and talking to each other, and oh, I met this researcher, you would like him. Oh, I met that researcher today, thanks for telling me about him, he's so smart and so cool. Hey, Mr. Researcher, do you want to come over and meet me? I can appreciate how it's organized because it's building a sense of tension, the end of one letter and the beginning of another. It's kind of fun to see how it's all organized, because they are combining letters that they have, like I said, from their respective siblings, and they're trying to piece together this mystery. So I like the organization, but I don't like it being solely in letters. I like that there's research, but it's not as like passionate as I thought. I do not care about any of the romances. There's like multiple going on. I would not call this a romantic fantasy. I want to give it a 2.5, though I don't exactly know what my list of things that I liked would be. The writing was fine. There wasn't anything egregious about it. I don't think it really set a vibe. Like, compared to the cover, you'd think that this is full of like lush imagery, and it just wasn't. It's already difficult to get emotionally invested into characters when you're just reading through correspondence, compared to something like Emily Wilde, which is more journal entries and more internal thoughts. Sure, there's a little bit of that, but it is mostly back and forth. It already takes like a really skilled author to pull off getting you emotionally invested into characters, but then considering we have 4 different ones to read from, like that adds another layer on top of it. It'd be like reading 84 Charing Cross Road, which I liked a lot, and if you tried to convince me like there was a romance blooming in there, like that's what it felt like. I guess I liked that it was exploring some anxiety disorders with E, her talking with Henry and opening up. I like how their relationship developed. I just didn't feel anything towards them. And I think comparing this to Emily Wilde is a bookseller thing, and I got this recommendation from a bookseller. I don't think many people who read both would compare them very closely as far as vibes. And My main thing is the dynamic, and I could have gotten that more across maybe if I had more amount of characters to really spill my guts in the recommendation request. But what I feel like Underbrush is doing is, because they're recommending 3 things every single month and this is supposed to be a recurring subscription, when you check off the boxes, I don't think they want you to pigeonhole yourself and say like, I only like this thing with these 3 attributes. They want a broader idea of your taste, and they can recommend you things every single month that fit into different parts of it. Not reviewing the service, but the book. You would think that people, because they all exist in the same reality where they're living in these underwater situations, they wouldn't feel the need to give any background onto how we got to where we are because they're letters. Yet it does shoehorn in some like strange histories, but then doesn't do that when it could have with the atmosphere. It took me so long to really get an idea of what their lifestyle and like living situation even looked like. Then we did get some description. It was just way later in the book when it didn't feel like the most relevant. This is apparently the first book in a series. It ended in a very unsatisfying way, which I was not expecting. And again, that's something that I could specify, as I'm not necessarily looking for a series. I love a standalone romance fantasy. I'm gonna have to be really invested in the characters to read on. What I think this should have been is a novella series. And this should have been cut down to like 1/3 of the length that it was. And then the next book could do whatever, the second book does, answering all the questions that we got in here. And then we could go on like different paths with different character journeys, because this just felt like a really long prologue. It got exciting and action-packed and thrilling, but that's not necessarily like, yes, that is something that I'm interested in, but maybe the entire time, like an adventure story. This was so dull for so long, and then it was like, let me blow shit out of the water. I appreciate where the direction went. I think it's really interesting. And considering some of the movies that I remember listing that I liked, I can see why someone would think that this is something that I could like. But yeah, a 2.5. Let's move on to the next service. I'm just getting ready to do sprints by channel members. Behooved is on the docket. This is starring Bianca. That's a horse girl name. Bianca, Brooklyn, Brielle, Brianna, like a B name is a horse girl name. It kicks off the way a lot of romantasy books do that I have come across, where she is being married into another family for an alliance. She's going to be with Prince Eric, but things take a turn because on their wedding night, he transforms into a horse. Now he's a horse by day, man by night. And here's my thing. If she doesn't get it on with him in his horse form, what's the point of the horse? Like, you selected an animal with a well-known large appendage. Surely it's not going to go in that direction. But if it doesn't, like, why? I'm not a horse girl. I'm not one for shapeshifting. And I'm not one for these hideous sprite edges. But you know what? I hope I sing a different tune by the time I talk to you next. Book is bad. Yeah, I think my book is bad. These two people are so miserable. This is not the fun romantasy I wanted to get into. They both have been convinced to be in this marriage, and they're both so unhappy, and we're just in Bianca's head, and she's like, he hates me, I know he hates me, and I hate him, and I hate everything, and I hate being here, and I hate him. And then they go to sleep together, their first night together, and he goes, let's get this over with. Yeah, suddenly he's a horse. She's not indeed getting it on with him at that moment, but like suddenly it's morning and he's a horse. It's like that moment in Twilight where Bella's running and she's like, run, and Jacob turns into the werewolf. He just turned into the horse to protect her. And then suddenly he has kind of a different personality when he's the horse. He's like jokey and funny when they're like in danger. She goes, Eric, are you a horse? And he goes, what do I look like, a chicken? Oh, yeah. Another part, the horse talks in her mind. I mean, I probably would like that better than a talking horse, though, to be fair. There's no subtlety. When they first meet, she has a dagger in her sleeve because she's trying to protect herself. And he says, I hope you're not planning to use that dagger in the bedchamber. And she says, I thought the bedchamber was exactly the place for, how do you say it, swords. And then instead of just letting us live with that, her internal monologue kicks in and says, the word I'd used, a less than courtly term, had another meaning besides the weaponry sense. Thanks. I didn't actually know you were talking about but now I got it. Thank you so much. We just had a scene where she's reminiscing about a great love of hers, this woman who she couldn't be with. And it felt like the book want her to be with her, and that like this horseman should help her get to be with this like Catalina woman. The way time is passing is very annoying. In one sentence, we'll go from nighttime to daytime. It feels like no time has passed, and then it'll be like, it was dawn and he turned into a horse. I guess my main critique is that it's just all so obvious. Like, normally I like an only one bed moment, but just the way that it happened, she was like, oh, the bed. There was only one. Like, and then they had the same conversation every single partnership has when there's only one bed. No, I'll sleep on the floor. No, I'll sleep on the floor. I appreciate the chronic pain representation. She is struggling and she doesn't want to let him in on it because she has struggled with it her entire life and had people treat her like she's weak. But even when that is brought up, I can objectively see that I'm supposed to enjoy that he's making her feel safer, and whatever. But it's so quickly they go from like hate to love, and he's the one who's comforting her. This huge paragraph of him being like, here's all the reasons that you're strong. And just because you're in pain, like you're determined and you push through it. And then he goes, strength isn't about what your body can do. It's about how you respond to adversity. It's like good messages, but it's so obvious. And just the horse jokes constantly. She'd be like, he lent me a helping hand. I mean, hoof. She's talking to another person and they're like, he's a good man. I mean, horse. I hate a steamy scene that begins with the girl crying. And then the man's like, here's how I'll make you feel better. But even worse is when our main character is in pain. She already has chronic pain. And then she gets injured, severely injured. Like has to have stitches, her body's in pain. And they're like, now's the time. Now's the time? Really? I don't like it. I'm not into it. Even if she's like, no, go ahead. Like, no, don't go ahead. The steamy scene was like a paragraph. And then the second steamy scene was basically a fade to black. What was the point? And he was never a horse. This book needed to be a little more edited. I am struggling with the scenes because it's just very repetitive language. I don't want to be insulting, but it feels like somebody put a prompt into ChatGPT that was like, write me a battle scene. Here are the people involved. There's a brunette woman, a blonde woman, and a man. The scene went, the blonde woman leapt over there. The brunette woman went over here. The blonde woman picked up a knife. The blonde woman ran over there. There was a paragraph where they were making a plan for what they were going to do. And she was like, if we ride hard, we can get to the town within this many hours. All we have to do is ride hard. And she said, okay, everybody, here's the plan. We're going to ride hard. And I was like, okay, 3 times is plenty. Next paragraph, we leapt forward in time and said, we rode hard and we got to the town on time. Somebody get this woman a thesaurus. Some other things that I hate would be spoilers. If this book had some comic relief and I believed that it was like self-aware and it was making these jokes in a fun way, then I might be more on board. But I feel like the book is just taking itself so seriously. It's bothering me. It's all bothering me. I don't like being this person. I hated every single page of it. and I'm giving it 1 star. I don't think me reading this was the most fair because, like I said, I already was not set up to think that I would love it, but obviously it was recommended to me and I'm committed to the bit. I think that this was poorly written. It was cheesy, repetitive, grabbed every single element of any book in existence. The characters were almost too self-aware, but also morons. Plot was basically non-existent. It was your classic, like, who's gonna control the throne, who's gonna be in charge. So people were vying for that position. There was a moment where she really had to prove herself that she was strong. A villainous monologue, long spanning paragraphs of him going, "You're stronger than you think you are. You're so perfect and you're so beautiful." As far as the things that I listed, okay, it was steamy. I don't think there was yearning. Went from enemies to lovers. Check that off very swiftly. It was emotional. It was not fun. The plot really didn't matter at the end of the day, and I didn't care about it. This was a real flop, but let's move on. It's time for A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine. I like how long this is. I feel like if you're going to introduce a love triangle, you need to be 500 pages. I don't actually know if this is a series, but our main character has like her childhood friend, and he is promised to her sister, but she's the changeling force, so they've never actually met, and she's going into the fairy realm to get her back, to deliver her to the prince, but she's in love with the prince. And then there's a fairy lord who's holding her sister captive, and she's gonna fall for him too. Her poor sister. We didn't even get to know her sister's name, but I feel bad for her. She was stolen as a baby. Her sister's in love with her betrothed and in love with her captor. Fia better be a really interesting character to win me over. Book 1 of Fair Folk. Listen, I'm usually not that into introducing the love interest so early on, and especially if they're like already an established thing, but the dynamic already between these two, I love. Oh my god. Okay, so there's a prince right at the beginning who basically picks a fight with her. There's this creature who you're not supposed to hold captive because they can like tell the future, and that little creature's being abused by this prince, and so she is like attacking him, and they're going back and forth. Another prince shows up who she knows from childhood. It's like her best friend, her only confidant. He's 2 years older than her sparring partner, and he like whispers in her ear, and then they go off like running away to escape the guards who want to protect the other prince who just got attacked. And I love hiding in plain sight kind of situation. You know, when you're running away from someone, you're not gonna be able to escape them. So like, let's just pretend we're making out in the corner and we're just two random people. Like, we're not the people you're trying to find. They just did that. I love that kind of scene. And just like that, we're introduced to Prince Rogan, and I'm into it. Hi, I am eating this book up. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm a third of the way through, and we have just now gotten introduced to the other love interest, which I think is just the perfect timing because we've spent these 12 chapters really establishing this relationship between Fia and Rogan. The story isn't exactly as pitched, like, no, it is, but what's actually happening is her sister, the person she's a changeling for, Rogan and her have never actually met. Her name's Ela. She's never met him, he's never met her, like they don't know each other. It's just that he has been promised to her. Fia's entire life, she's basically treated kind of like a burden or treated like a stand-in for the real girl, which makes sense. And some people know she's a changeling, some people don't. Her mother has pretty much raised her going like, no one else is ever gonna love you. Your mother's love is all that matters, and like you'll never have anything. But it was in what's supposed to be a positive way. She's interpreted it as that, and us as the reader see it for the sinister nature that it actually is. So she's convinced herself her entire life that Rogan could never actually love her, and they've been together, like they have an established thing going on. But now there's this opportunity to find Ela in like the gates of the Fae world and whatever. So they go there, and it's not like a little quest. They are there. It seems like they're going to be there for a while. They're getting to know the land and like the people, and they have to infiltrate it in order to get Ela out. Like, it's not just, oh, we see her, we can take her home. And in this first third, we've seen Fia and Rogan kind of grapple with their feelings about each other. Like, they clearly are interested, but there's something keeping them apart, but it's not really keeping them apart. And then when she meets the captor Fae Lord, it's not like this big overarching like scary older man that I kind of thought it was. It's just a guy who happens to have his magic tied to all of these girls. And even when she meets them at first, it's like people say he's bad, but people say that he's not, and she's trying to form her own opinion about him. It's not like suddenly she's in like this palace and there's like a lord and he's like all powerful. He's just like this guy in the woods. I love the nature of this, like the rivers and the trees and all. I love the vibes. And at this point, I don't see how you're gonna convince me that she should be with this fairy, but obviously there's many pages for that to be done. I think it's a kind of situation where there's two parts of this girl's identity. She's a little human, she's a changeling, and both of these guys have a different idea of her and bring out a different part of her, so it's hard for her to decide. There is a plot, like there is dark magic and there's these swans and there's stuff actively happening, but it is a lot of inner turmoil about specifically the relationships that she wants to be in. Now from here, I won't spoil any more of the plot. I'll just tell you how I'm feeling about it, because I feel like that's a good introduction to actually what the story is about. Oh my god, it's so hot out. I'm positively glistening. I'm 3/4 of the way through this, and it's very much for me. I will admit, I think it's a little simplistic. Like, the plot isn't the most unique. The world's not the most unique. The writing is good. It's atmospheric, exploring all of the emotions and the characters, I think is good. It's just there are moments where it's a very typical, like, he had a very masculine smell, and that's as far as it goes. It's messy, just like it pitched itself as. It's a little bit steamy, and there is a plot. Yes, the plot is pretty interpersonal, but there are like goals and things. There's new information being introduced, especially like at the halfway point, we got some new information that changed the goal of the story, which I think was great. Oh, and I tried out the audiobook, and it has an Irish narrator, and I love listening to it. It's very immersive now. And the pronunciation of Ela is actually Ayla, so that's good for me to know. I really like the passing of time in here. It's not a quest book. It's just like you're following their lives. They're up into the halfway point, especially. There weren't a ton of high stakes or like time constraint of when they had to accomplish a goal. So it's kind of just like you're following what feels like a couple, like they're friends, but they're also going towards a romantic relationship. They have a goal to accomplish, but you're kind of just watching like their lives unfold and them working towards something that isn't like, if we don't do it in the next 30 days, something terrible is going to happen. But then, like I said, a time constraint has now been introduced. So I imagine things are going to pick up in pace. I like her as a main character. She's kind and she's competent and she's very motivated towards her goals. And at this point in her life, she's also prioritizing her own desires for like the first time. And I like following that journey. I really liked this. I'm giving it a 4.25, and I might even continue in the series. Can you believe it? It had most everything on my list, except the fact that it wasn't fun. Like, this wasn't a rom-com in any way. I don't even think you would say there was much banter between either of the love interests. But other than that, like, it ticks off so many things. And I think it was a successful love triangle, or I guess it's a love square. I think both of the men could have used a little more personality. They could have had just a stronger sense of characterization, and that would have made me absolutely love it. But they were just more generic fantasy characters that you kind of see everywhere. What I think it was successful in is making a case for why each boy was intriguing for her. Maybe not for me as the reader, but for her as the character. I can see why she would be interested in both of them, especially because she is somebody who has lacked love, and they were both just obsessed with her. Their number one personality traits, both of them, are their obsession with her. And like, duh, isn't that what every girl wants? We also got a sex scene with each of the love interests, which I just feel like not a lot of authors would commit to. So props to Lyra for that. Loved the Celtic mythology, loved the little storytelling going on in there, and overall I had a really good time with it, and I would recommend it. What a win! We did it. The experiment is over. Here's my final ranking versus my predicted ranking. I actually got pretty close. I had a good sense of what I was gonna like before I even read the synopsis. And then compared to my members' predictions, which a lot of them are probably just like which ones they've actually heard of. Kind of like the Goodreads Choice Awards. You haven't read all 20 books in the category, but you're still gonna vote for the ones that you have. The biggest learning from this video is that I'm still a picky bitch. That has not changed. And I think what's fun is I read a book from mytbr.co that I liked and that I didn't like. A recommendation from UNDERBRUSH that I liked and that I didn't like. And then these ratings aren't too far apart, but from LGBTQ Reads, I read something that I liked and gave 4 stars and something that I gave a 3. What we'll do here at the end is just talk about which service I think was the most successful, the one that was the best experience, and the one that is my favorite in theory. So the most successful, I have to say, is LGBTQ Reads, because I didn't hate either of the books that she offered. With that said, there were like 10 other books that she mentioned that I might have hated, so it's just about the ones that I happened to select. I think one-on-one messaging with someone and them getting to know your taste and you being able to be really honest with what's working and what's not one-on-one in a message is really cool. I don't think the way I did it is the way you're supposed to do it. You're just supposed to put out a general idea, but it does seem like she's down for a back and forth and to only send you something once you confirm that is for sure the book that you want. My favorite in theory is UNDERBRUSH. I really like the concept of this recommendation service. I like that every month you get 3 to choose from. You confirm which one you want sent to you, and then you get it in the mail, and it's not a complete surprise. Especially for those of us who are really on top of our TBR, are constantly buying new releases, who are getting things from the library, and who are doing monthly subscriptions elsewhere. Like, that's such a trend right now, getting something every single month. The business model is my favorite compared to quarterly, and the fact that you get to say yes to a book before it comes. My thoughts on where they could improve isn't really fair, because one of them is just more unique titles, I think, but they don't know what I've already heard of. And because they're a bookseller, they see what is moving in the actual bookstore. These books combined, though, have over 50,000 ratings on Goodreads. Meanwhile, each of the other businesses, the combo of these books, have under 10,000 combined each. And it makes sense because you know what's popular, you want to recommend what's popular, but I am really looking for niche-er recommendations. What I would recommend to them is to really take your blog and expand it and post on it really regularly and make it almost a separate entity from your bookstore. And that gives you the reputation of already being able to give free recommendations. And then I think people would be more likely to trust you on really personalized ones. Because my favorite experience is with mytbr.co. It remains, even though I hated a book, that's not their fault. It ticked more boxes than plenty of other books that I liked more. And because of the reputation of their actual website and all of their posting, all the people that contribute, they have built trust in their community. And because of the really thorough way that I got to fill out the form and the letter that comes back to me that feels so personalized, this experience was so good. And I never heard about this book before them, which I just think is so cool. They literally have a rule in place that they're only allowed to recommend a book so many times, which keeps things really fresh. But with all of the services, I have learned that I can't control which portion of the form or the conversation they take and run with. When it comes to UNDERBRUSH, all the things I was listing for you at the beginning, I didn't actually get to explain all of those things. It was in a more condensed format. So I don't think there's anyone ever to blame in any circumstance for what they happened to recommend me and what I liked or didn't like. I would recommend all of the services, but for different reasons and to different people. And in every case, you're supporting a small business who's doing great things in the bookish arena. And obviously, things can come across a lot better in a verbal sense, a video sense. So I think you have a better idea of what I'm looking for, more so than anybody that I filled a little form out for. It's not that I want a book with this element and a book with this element and a book with this element. I want one book with all of the elements. Even if it has all the elements, it doesn't guarantee it'll be a 5-star, as we've learned, but there will be a part 2 to this video and a part 3. Leave your recommendations down below. I've already been gathering some that I've seen in my comments, and I will see you next time with something else. Bye!